I wasted my 20s. Or did I? It never appealed to me in general to live like this normal life of having a family, having a house, having kids, having a job. That didn't seem to me like an option at all. And so I went out to seek deeper. So I started studying philosophy and went deep into all the philosophical books, all the philosophers from Heidegger to Aristotle to Socrates, going to the ancient philosophers to until the modern philosophers. And yeah, pretty quickly I started also going into neuroscience, changing my study subject in school, cognitive science, psychology, wondering what this actually means to find your true potential, what this life really means. But anything I read was pretty much leading to more questions instead of answers. And so I was seeking and seeking, trying to find the answers in science, trying to find the answers in books, in teachers, and ideas and perspectives. Till I realized that logic was definitely one thing I could apply to life. And if I deduct everything I know, and analyze everything logically, I only end up in paradoxes. Like that there is a wall there that I cannot penetrate with my logic. And I was seeing that this was the point where I couldn't go further. Mentally, logically, analytically, I couldn't penetrate life deeper because there was only contradictions and only paradox. And so I realized that it was futile to continue trying to find answers with logic, science. And I started reading religious books, started reading the Bible, took a few glimpses in the holy texts. I went to Mount Athos, where, pretty much people spend their entire life there being with God. It's like an island in Greece where only men are allowed on it, and they're just monks living their life there and not doing anything else but just being with God and trying to understand their ways of living, their ways of being. But nothing really hit me until I came across a book that was called Buddha and the Science of Happiness. And this book led me to connect like a few dots with science and meditation. I was an extreme skeptic when it came to pretty much all religion, pretty much all of the things that I couldn't prove to myself with logic or to deduct myself with logic. And so I was pretty rigid in my logical belief system. I was carrying a dense amount of beliefs with me, rigid in many ways. And so I gave it a shot. This book opened up the points of neuroscience with brain science, with physics, and how meditation relates to that. And in my studies in neuroscience, back then in university, I came across a study where I saw what alcohol and drugs can do to the brain through fMRI, which is our basically photographing the brain activity and getting to know what it means to what's going on in the brain. And so after seeing what alcohol was doing in the brain, I couldn't touch that anymore. So since since I'm 20 years old, I haven't touched that these kind of substances anymore because I was seeing how the brain was literally deteriorating when you were drinking alcohol, and it was also not regenerating those white cells in the brain, which are pretty much the white matter, which is so important for just cognition and memory and just basic capabilities. And I came already out of a brain disease, which like led to some concentration difficulties, and I couldn't really, sometimes focus on something. And so for me, it was all about going deeper into the nature of life and finding out what it truly means to be alive, what it truly means to be human. Because nobody really knew that. Nobody really had answers to my life. Yes, I came across philosophies and ideas, but that didn't really transform me. No matter how much answers I was looking for, no matter how much I was analyzing and reading and trying to put everything into a logical box to make the universe fit basically into my head, it never really left me transformed. And so when I started giving it a shot, and I started giving meditation a shot, to just like sit down, close my eyes, and just watch my breath for the first time, I was extremely skeptical. I was like, how can this make any difference? And what's the point of just closing your eyes and watching your breath? What's the point of that? Like, why would that help me in any way? And so I remember I was sitting by the river in Mannheim, Germany, where I was studying at that time. And I was sitting by the river under a beautiful oak tree. And I closed my eyes and I just read a few pages in the book and it just told me to close my eyes and just watch my breath. That's all, nothing else. And so I did that. I was closing my eyes and watching my breath coming in and out, in and out. And even though many thoughts were arising in that time, I remember there was something beautiful, something magical about it, which I never experienced before in any other way. And especially when, after a few minutes, I don't know how long I meditated the first time, but probably more like 20 minutes. I was sitting there, I opened my eyes, and life looked so differently. Life looked so surreal, so much more peaceful, so much more beautiful. And I noticed how this was so different. It was so different than what I usually experience. Usually I just go through the motions thinking one thing after another. And that time when I opened my moment, that I was just in awe with life. I could look at a tree, I could look at the river and just be with it. That was the first time when I felt just being aware and what it meant to be aware. Of course, at that time I didn't know, I didn't have so much experience with just simple awareness. Even though now I know that awareness is always there. We just can't stay distracted, too distracted to experience awareness. But the awareness is like literally the fundamental basis of your experience. And so it was different. I wasn't experiencing just thoughts anymore. I was not experiencing just my own heads and ideas, trying to analyze and conclude everything, have conclusions about everything. But I felt that ease. And I knew there was something special about it. I didn't know what it was, but it just pulled me into that journey day after day. Afterwards, I couldn't even stop doing it anymore. Every single day, I closed my eyes for a few moments and just watched my breath every single day. And the more I was doing it, the more beautiful life became, the more calm life became. And at that time, I had also a very, let's say, reactive roommate. And she was a bit older, and yeah, we were not really vibing at all. And I couldn't really like reach her with my communication. She couldn't really reach me with her communication. And no matter what I tried to do logically, no matter how logical my arguments were, it was never reaching her. And so I noticed how often in communication we're trying to be logical and have good arguments in order to win a conversation and be right, quote unquote. But there's really nothing that we're winning through that, because a conversation is never about being right. It's about knowing how to direct the energy forward in the direction that you desire to. And just making sure you're being right is most of the time not going to lead to that outcome, but more about understanding and listening to the other person and seeing their perspective, being in a compassionate state, and including that perspective into your own. Because in the end of the day, you know your own, and you can state it, and it's okay if it's not being understood. But if you can understand, and listen, you can find deeper compassion within yourself and include that person as a part of you. And that was pretty much what was happening after meditating for a few times. I was realizing that I was not reacting anymore to the conversations that I had as well with my roommate. I was just simply hearing what she had to say and listening to it. And as much as I could, I was just like remaining calm, even though I felt triggered very often, and the energy was sometimes so dense and negative in my experience that I didn't know how to handle it. I was new to all of those things. I was new to just being aware, just being able to listen, to have a compassionate heart, be able to hold someone even though you don't agree with someone. And so meditation taught me how to just be able to be with someone without trying to put them into a box or judge them for who they are or for what perspective they have, but to be able to simply hold the perspective and be with them without absorbing them, without reacting, without being triggered. And these were the first stepping stones into my meditation journey because it was working so beautifully. It was working so beautifully. The colors were more vivid. How I was walking, how I was feeling, how I was seeing the world shifted because all of a sudden my mind was getting emptier and emptier. All the ideas and beliefs and conclusions that I had about life, I just simply let them drop. One by one, part by part, piece by piece, I've unlearned moment by moment everything that was not serving me anymore and everything that was not needed in this moment. And slowly became pretty much a big part of my life in my 20s. I spent probably over 5,000 hours in just sitting still and just watching my breath in just a matter of 5 years and 5 or 7 years about. And so it really pulled me in a lot because I was seeing life with such clarity, with such beauty. And suddenly life was not looking so dense anymore. I was joyful without reason. I didn't have a reason or something I needed to achieve before I feel happy, something I needed to have accomplished before I felt joy. There was no need anymore for some external variable to move me so I can feel something. No, I was just naturally joyful. I was just naturally peaceful. I was just naturally happy. And I realized how much the small things in my life were making me so happy and so joyful. And they were always there. There was really no difference between how I was living or what I was living the years before and the years after I started meditating. I was doing pretty similar things, but the way I was experiencing my day-to-day life just changed and shifted because now I was paying attention to everything and how everything felt was so different. Just taking a breath felt so ecstatic in some moments of my life. And sometimes just sitting and being here in this moment, fully present and in your body, is such a blissful experience. Not trying to escape to another moment, not trying to get somewhere, not trying to avoid something from the past, but just simply being here fully. And so I realized very much that my 20s were a literal process from complete dullness, not knowing if this life has something more beautiful than what I was experiencing. So my 20s were literally from dullness to aliveness. That's the only way I can fully put it into words. These are more the most accurate words I can pull it. From feeling dull, feeling being not in my body, not experiencing my five senses, not knowing which direction I should go in life, and not knowing who I am or what's the point of life and what's my purpose, to realizing that it's all a choice, that it's all a choice, that it's all a choice. And that just by creating distance between my memory and who I think I am and who I truly am, which is free of the memory of the past, free of my projections towards the future, that I am truly bliss, this eternal moment, this eternal now, that I am that bliss, that eternal now. And so I realized how there's nothing really else to do or to be or to become, that all of the hours I spent looking and seeking was just a way to see the things that I am not, the things I thought and believed I was. They were all just some things I accumulated around me from the environment around me and nothing else. They're not my identity. And so when I don't carry my memory all the time on my shoulders and just seeing I am this and I am that, I'm completely free. I feel so free. And then, of course, I became aware that it's also important to let go of that thought too, because now the ego can say, oh, I'm this person that feels free now, that is that person that is in that spiritual bliss. And it's also something I needed to face, right? When you have this beautiful experience, all of a sudden you can build an identity around that. And then realizing that also this need to be let go of. That even this is just another identity that you can build, which I've experienced many people do have too. And I was part of it. And when I realized that I needed to let go of that too, that identity that I basically built around myself in my 20s, which was one of bliss, freedom, awakening, that I needed to let go of that story too. That there is no need of any story. There's no need of any description, no need of any label of who I am and what it is that I experience in this moment. Because this experience in this moment is all there is. And there's nothing really to describe it. Because the moment you're describing, the moment you're putting into a label, the moment you're putting it into a word, you're packaging it. And so it's not anymore what it is with the package around. And so it's truly a blessing. It's truly a blessing to just be able to be in this moment without trying to be something else, trying to be somewhere else, without trying to escape. So yes, I think there's no way I wasted any second in my life because of who I am now. It's not anymore reliant upon who I was. 10 years ago it was. 5 years ago it was. Yesterday it was. But who I am today is entirely determined by who I am now and who I choose to be now. And that I can be whatever I want to be in this moment. Or I can just simply be without even shifting or changing anything. So yeah, this is my experience of my 20s in a nutshell. I'd love to hear, how's your experience in your 20s? Do you feel like you spend time looking within? Have you been also caught up in a loop of distraction? Do you feel like you're wasting your lifetime? At the end of the day, none of those stories really matter, and there's really nothing that you need to do in order to be in this moment. Because as it is saying, the word itself, being, doesn't require doing. You just simply be, and there's no more doing in that being. And so you're moving from a human doing towards a human being, which you already are, of course. We all are. But we're forgetting that we are human beings in all the doing and all the distractions and the noises of the world. Thank you so much for tuning in. I wish you a wonderful day.